I'm Jim Collison and live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska, and our offices in India. This is Gallup's Called to Coach, recorded on November 20th, 2019. Called to Coach is a resource for those that want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. If you're listening live, we'd love to have you log into our chat room. Available for you if you're on our live page. There's just a link to the YouTube page where that chat room is available for us. Just log in and you can post your comments there. If you're listening after the fact, you can send us your questions, email those to us, coaching@gallup.com. Tanvi Aluwalia is our host today. I hope I got close on that one.
Absolutely.
She works as a senior consultant here at Gallup, and first time on Call to Coach, which is why I struggled a little bit. But Tanvi, welcome to Call to Coach. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you.
Great to have you. Let's take a second, introduce, why don't you take a second, Tanvi, since you're new to Call to Coach, just introduce yourself a little bit, and then let's introduce our guest.
Yes, wonderful. Great. Well, I'm a senior consultant with Gallup, and very interestingly, the guest over here, Vivian, and we joined our respective companies in the same month, in the same year, in May 2012. Well, I work extensively with Fortune 500 companies in India and also with some in the Middle East, and and I do a lot of work around executing our Gallup science, and I also extensively around strengths and leadership and managerial development, and I've also now started managing business for our North region in India. And I'm very excited to be here, part of our fabulous Call to Coach series. And I'm happy to welcome our guest, Vivian Alfred. Well, Vivian, a very warm welcome to Call to Coach today.
Thank you, Tanvi. Thank you, Jim.
Wonderful. So, yeah. I'm going to take a minute to introduce you, but you were saying something.
Yeah. No. You could go ahead to introduce.
Wonderful. I'm going to introduce Vivian for all of us here joining us live and also for this recording. Vivian is the Vice President Human Resources at Endress Hauser, and we had about 17 years of experience in human resources and 5 years as a journalist. Vivian also has extensive expertise in the area and focuses on leadership development, employee engagement, career planning, psychometrics, and neuro-linguistic programming, which is very, very interesting. He also has successfully developed a Discover Your Power framework to empower individuals, teams, and organizations to help meet their full potential. So during the course of our conversation today, we'd also love to hear a bit about that too. So Vivian, let's get started. Let's hear about how your journey has been since the time you certified as a Gallup-Certified Strengths Coach.
Well, I got certified just in 2018, and since then it has been quite an interesting journey. Strengths as such is the Strengths Finder as such is not something that was new to me now. It's something that I have known since 2006. That's when I actually got exposed to strengths. So can I talk a little bit about my history?
You must. Yes, please. We'd love to hear.
So this was a US company where I had joined in 2006, the day I started, the first day that I started, and my CEO there mentioned, in the welcome that, Vivian, I have something for you, and just wanted to understand if you have ever understood the Gallup Strengths Finder. So I said, yeah, I must have read the book, but nothing that I've gone deeper into it. But it's something of interest to me. So that's when I got the Gallup 2.0 book there in the office for all of us. We had the links, and we did the Strengths Finder. So that was the first time that we had actually got into it. But after that, we did not go much deeper. Though I read the book, I found it very interesting. I had understood something about myself. Well, if you ask me to recollect my top 5 from 2006, I don't recollect because that's not handy. But I recollect that more or less whatever was captured then is something what I still have it on my top 5 even today. So that's when it all started. We did it for our management team. We did it for some of our senior people. Only the strengths finder, we just took the reports and that's about it. So each of them read the reports and said, okay, this is something good, this is something lively, but we did not go beyond that. But from there on, when I joined here in Endress Hauser in 2012, I said at some point in time, I need to really go deeper into this and see how this can really, sort of help people, uh, you know, guide them maybe in their leadership development or maybe in career development, etc.
Mm.
So here in Endress Hauser, I'm heading human resources. I'm having an HR generalist profile. So responsible for all activities from L&D to strategic human resources, employee engagement. Okay, and okay, also a bit of IR is also included into the profile, but it's I would say more than 95% of my profile is completely in human resources.
Mhm.
The legal part of the profile, I also have a legal person reporting into me. That's the 5% of IR which is there in addition, but otherwise it's primarily the 95% of that is primarily into HR.
Okay.
Uh, so Endress Hauser is a process automation company, and it's a Swiss German company. It's headquartered in Switzerland in Rheineck. Here in India, we are headquartered here in Mumbai. We have around 10 regional offices across India. Uh, Around 250 people around. That is what we have here in India on the sales center side. So we have two factions. One is the sales center and one is a production center. So the sales center is here headquartered in Mumbai, for which I'm heading here. And then we also have a production center in Aurangabad, which has 3 manufacturing facilities, and that has another 250 odd people. So overall, we have 500 people in India. And well, uh, after getting myself certified in 2018, after getting myself certified, I wanted to sort of use this tool in a way that how I can help my people in sales, marketing, maybe across all functions of how we could sort of develop them into in their roles. So career management was one of the focus. Leadership development was another focus that we were talking about. We were also seeing how effectively we can help them flourish in their current roles. So all those things was something which became a part of my journey since the Strengths Finder started.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful to hear. I'd love to hear a little bit more about going a step, maybe going a little deeper into this to say, if you could share some examples of how you integrated strengths into Endress Hauser. I know you spoke about,
Yeah.
helping them flourish in their careers. So if some examples would be great.
Yeah. So it was 2017, and 2017 there was a changeover in our top management. So
Okay.
Uh, so of course, I had gone for the course in 2017, the accelerated strengths coaching course here in Mumbai, and so after coming back from the course, of course, we had a new managing director, but the new managing director was actually from I mean, it was a succession planning from internal succession planning. So he was primarily earlier the head of sales for India, and
Mhm.
we got him to head the organization. Uh, okay, why I'm bringing this point is after my course, I went ahead and did the Strengths Finder with this candidate, the internal candidate also.
Okay.
So who eventually became who eventually is now the managing director for Endress Hauser India.
Mhm.
So so when I did that, and he saw his report, and then I sort of chatted with him on that, and he really felt this was something I mean, remarkably useful, and he actually saw his mirror image. He said,
Mm.
this is what I am, and I mean, I can't believe it. This is exactly what it talks about, and this is how this is how I interact with people. This is how I build relationships. This is how I connect. And well, from there it was much easy, because the MD himself had bought in at that stage
Mm.
while he was the succession planning ladder. So after he became the new managing director, it became all the more easier for me to start implementing the Strengths Finder here in India. We started with the MD, then we moved on to the management team, and 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 now it's become a kind of practice in Endress Hauser India.
That's great. So does this work across levels, Vivian, the Strengths Finder, in terms of conversations on how they leverage people leverage strengths in this organization?
Yes, yes. So at least what we did is, as a step one at the level one, what we did is we did it for the management team.
Hmm.
And at the management team level, we actually help them. We identify the top five. We also eventually did the all 34.
Okay.
So that, yeah, so that we had all those in place. And sort of we also so that was my step one. And then from there we moved on to identify the high potentials across various departments or across processes, to whom we also escalated. uh,
Okay.
we we had one team, which I mean is a Mumbai regional team, the Mumbai sales team, the regional team, where we actually started sort of implementing this strengths finder. We had the entire team go through this. So I would say that was my pilot project, where actually that the strengths finder gained more visibility across all levels.
Okay.
Because what happened was, the region was actually in doldrums, and it was actually going through a lot of turmoil. There were a lot of organizational changes that happened prior to 2017. And the organization the Mumbai sales organization, the sales team, was actually coming up to speed, and they had this new incumbents in. So I had a discussion with the regional head of Mumbai, and we said, why don't we look at something different of how we could have people more connected to their jobs, how we could leverage on what they can do best. And he was kind of kicked up. So I did a sense finder on with him, and from there on the journey started. He found it immensely valuable. He then started connecting it with his team members, and then the region went on to win the best region award in 2000s
Wow.
in 2018. So 2018, they won the best region award, and the entire team had gone for a junket trip outside with the family. So they were like gungo, and that became a kind of a trend. From there, it became a kind of a trend for people to get more enrolled. On the other side, the management team was also experiencing a lot of positive things out of the strengths finder. And then they started building up on this. What I would add up here is, something what I developed here internally was the discovery of power.
Hmm.
So when I said this discovery of power, what we did is, had okay uh, uh, power stands for P stands for potential, O for optimal best, and W for what you want. Your environment is E, and red spots is R. So that is what power is all about. So what I had done at the start was to make it more simplified, for people reading the report, and helping them register into their minds and into their practice. I adopted this model of power and integrated with something called as, how can you make your customers happy. So
Okay.
when I say happy, happy stands for, H stands for help. How do you avoid certain things with the customers? How do you provide stability, to the customer? So how do you provide a secure base to the customer? How do you provide inspiration to the customer? And how do you yield trust? So how do you produce trust? So
Hmm.
all these elements. So how you discover your power, and how can you make your customers happy? So these two elements were kind of integrated within the strengths finder piece. So we had the strengths identified for people, and we just help them identify as say, for example, if you were strategic, how you use strategic to help the customers, how you can use the strategic to avoid certain discussions or certain confrontations with customers, how you can use that to provide a secure base to them, how you can use that to provide more, to inspire your customers more, how do you use that to build that trust between you and the customer. So this tool kind of gained a good popularity. So people sort of got connected easily to this thing. And again, when I say power, in power we said, say, if you were a strategic, what's the potential that your strength strategic has? How do you use this talent theme in a way that can produce best results for people at your optimal best? What can you really go ahead and achieve using strategic? Then what is that you want from the from the environment? or what is that you generally need in order to make your strength more effective. So which is anyway a part of your the theme cards that we have. Then I also added the element environment. What environment can help you to flourish more better? So how do you create that environment for yourself using that strength of strategic? And what are those red spots? So means what you have to refrain from in order to have your results accomplished. So when we ran down this thing, we created this kind of we call this kit, we call this as a talent toolkit. So it was a talent toolkit, so people could have this as a easy reference material for them to actually go through them, and start connecting it to their roles and start connecting it to their to their jobs.
That's
So
great. Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead,
thank
Vipin.
you, Tanvi. Yeah. So similarly, even for the management team, we had developed this thing, and we they started integrating it with their team. So from there, we also started using this now also for. Recently, I was in Switzerland, in Zurich, in Rheinach. That's our headquarters. We had our HR conference where I was hosting the regional HR meeting. So all our regional HR heads in the Asia Pacific region also had the benefit of having this workshop, where I conducted this workshop for them, and where I showed the elements of power, how you can use the power of your strengths in your roles in human resources. Okay, so on one part, what your job role is, and how you can use your top 5, rather I would say your top 12. So I went a little more deeper, so which means your dominant talent themes and ahead. Then how do you also use your supporting themes, and what should you sort of the bottom 10, something which you should not really focus too deep. Rather, you'd start looking at those which are there at the top, how you can use them to actually progress in your role, or to actually succeed in your role. So this is what we had the workshop, and it was pretty good, very quite successful. So I'm also developing a talent toolkit for the HR folks in the region on this. So it's been quite an interesting journey. I'm really loving it. It's a lovely experience.
Oh, that's great. And I really like what you said in the beginning, that the existing MD is where, the buy-in that you got in early on, that really gave you sort of
Yeah,
inroads to
yeah, yeah.
expand the foray and reach out to more people within the organization. So
Yes.
tell me, Vivian, this sounds like quite an exciting journey. Were there any challenges along the way of execution, because you've had more and more people join into the whole strengths movement within your organization? Were there any challenges you faced, and maybe some pushbacks, and how you would have handled those for all of us to know?
Yeah. Uh, of course, as they say, no gains without pain. So, of course, there were
True.
some challenges at the initial stage. But see, what became easy for me at the start was, what I leveraged on was, what was easy for me, and how well I can soon sell it to the people around. So, since I had it with the managing director, I then had used this tool first on apart from the management team, with a gentleman who was actually going for another internal succession from a India role to a global role. And he was he kind of said, Vivian, I want to experience this, and I wanted to see how this tool can actually help me to move on to my bigger role at a global level. So that was a very interesting experience, because then I started coaching with him on the same power, on the lines of power. And so he was actually heading our one of the regions in India, the one of the sales region in India. And he's now responsible for global sales management at a quite a senior level, but operating from India. So what happened is, while coaching him, when I had the test, I had the all 34 with him. He really found it, he said, this is sort of connecting very well to what I am. Now, how do I start translating this, when I'm interacting with say, with this global community, or when I'm interacting with the people in my fraternity? And so when I started connecting so he had his top five, of course, was strategic. He had relator, he had learner, he had maximizer, and he had okay, so four are coming to my mind. So this is what he had, and so he immediately started seeing that when I started connecting how you can use your relator to effectively build that kind of deep and close trustworthy relationships, how you can actually use your learner to actually start connecting with this new role, and how you can pull out those key pieces to build your castle. uh, and then again is maximizer, how we could make it more finesse, how we could how we need to move it to more kind of a better quality in your expression, a better quality in your delivery. When he started seeing this, and he said, okay, let me now start practically putting this puzzle together, and it happened. He went ahead and he got selected out of there were around 18 to 20 applicants who had applied for this role, and
Okay.
he was unanimously selected for the role, and he's now doing pretty well. So that became a kind of a good experience, because he started then sharing his experience with others.
Hmm.
uh, and there they that's how the Mumbai region came into play, and Mumbai region then said, okay, how effectively can we see now this tool that can help us move from losers to winners, something from a kind of a disintegrated to a well integrated team. And again, for Mumbai team it was a success. So this were some of the things that really went by very well. Then we had I had one of my colleague, a German colleague, Mr. Jürgen Eckert, and he wanted to do something where he just took up the role of global tendering team for India. He was responsible also for India on this new role, and he wanted to get more connected to his direct report here in India. So he said, Vivian, how effectively can I see using this tool to sort of bring about a stronger interpersonal collaboration? And I should appreciate a lot two people out here who were quite instrumental in also spreading the Strengths Finder outside India to other regions. So one is my colleague, the corporate HR director, Mr. Ronnie Hanny, based in Rheinach, Switzerland. He kind of actually saw my passion towards this. He actually saw how these things were working. He himself underwent the Strengths Finder on his own, and then he experienced these changes, and he started spreading that piece around the global headquarters too. And the other gentleman was Mr. Tony Jacobson, who is also a Strengths Finder fan, and he is responsible for Asia Pacific, and he's the regional sales director for the Asia Pacific region. So he was another gentleman who also kind of promoted this thing within the region, in the Asia Pacific. So that's how this tool is now getting a lot of prominence, and it's really interesting experience for all of us.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
That
thank you.
sounds great. What would you say now is really your next steps in building this this entire strengths movement that you've started? What are some of the things that you're working on for say 2020 to expand your entire strengths bit, not just in India but also Switzerland?
Okay, so I'm focusing on couple of things that I would say, where we are actually in the forthcoming May, that is in May 2020, we are going to have a regional HR meeting, which is a Asia Pacific regional meeting, and I'm going to be sharing how you integrate Strengths Finder into performance management systems. So
Okay.
how this can be integrated to your performance management dialogues, or maybe into the process itself. So that's going to be an interesting integration, and we would, if at all this becomes a success in the Asia Pacific region, that would become a global benchmark too. So that is one of the biggest focus that we are having.
Yeah. That sounds exciting, and that's definitely a lot of conversations that we also keep hearing in the market, and also with our clients. as well. Great. So Vivian, also for us to understand better, are there any tools that you are your go-to tools during your conversations internally that you picked up from the certification course? Because we always hear coaches say that this is a particular tool like a team grade or some sort of their theme cards. What are your go-to tools for to leverage during conversations in your coachings?
So, of course, the theme cards is one of them, and mostly, I actually read through all the call to coach sessions that we have, um, the different themes that come on the theme Thursday.
Okay.
So also we had the uh, Monday theme earlier. How do you sort of connect? How do you bring more productivity with these themes? So I constantly read these things, and these things actually I would say I embrace quite a lot, because they make a big difference. And these items, or these text, or this material which has helped me also to develop this framework and make it more successful here. So I should say thanks to entire Gallup team for having that thing, for having that access. It's quite an interesting thing. It's a lot to learn there.
Vivian, I want to say thank you. I didn't pay you to say that, but thanks for saying that. Mastery Monday is what you were thinking of on
Yes,
the
yes,
blog
yes,
post that we do as
yes,
well.
yes.
So I'll just butt in and say thanks. I appreciate that when people listen to those. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
So
great.
so that's how it has been. And I'm also I've kind of also integrating this with disk. So integrating the strengths finder with disk, being a certified disk profiling user, also integrated with disk. uh, it's something that I'm kind of coming out with something new, and maybe that will also show a different course for people. It'll chart out a different career plan, or a different growth plan for people.
Mhm.
And probably once it's completely ready, I will have another call to watch session and share it with all
Yes.
of us.
We'd love to hear on that, of course, absolutely. So, any advice, Vivian, that you would have on the idea of strengths for our existing coaches and also maybe for our budding coaches who are looking at becoming Gallup certified strengths coaches? Do you have any advice for them on do's and don'ts?
Well, on the do's, I would say, especially on the do's, you need to connect yourself completely to it. Just trust this piece. This is the most fabulous tool, and it's the greatest finding of the century, I feel, when it comes to bringing up something about strengths, comes something about talent themes. This is the greatest finding of the century. So you just trust this piece, go with it. I mean, you can learn quite a lot. Just learn, read a lot. Start connecting whatever you're reading. Start connecting it with real time situations, with real life situations. And you need to have your first sponsorer. When I mean your first sponsor needs to be very strong. So you have to, I mean, the moment you start using the tool, and moment you start showing the results to someone at the first, you made it. After that, it's just a journey ahead. So it's
Agreed. Always works. Yeah. Top,
yeah.
bottom. Yes. Top to bottom. Yes, Jim.
Vivian,
Other-
we often get questions. You mentioned a little bit, so maybe you could dig in some. We often get questions about ROI, and with the work that you do and the connection they have to HR. Are you guys actively tracking the ROI, the benefit on this, in a way that you can justify it year over year? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Uh, yes, I mean, so when it comes to justifying the ROI, we're connecting the strengths piece, to saying how you can use this to maximize your goals, or achieve the goals that has been set, achieve the goals or targets that's been set for the year. So that when we see that success happening, that itself becomes a kind of return on investment for us, because when we see people using that, applying that, and actually speaking about it, well, and translating that into success. So that's our result for us. So, like I was sharing the example of the Mumbai region piece, so if you a region which was in doldrums, and you had this leader who then took over, and the regional sales leader, of course, he was also dynamic, but then how he could start connecting with his strengths piece. And then when he started connecting his strengths piece, how he started connecting with his team, how he started connecting with his customers, and how he started connecting with the business. you know this was very interesting even for me to see how it's actually working. It was just actually working. It was just flowing, and he could feel it, and he said, Vivian, I see everything just happening. So from there, when it started moving to the entire team, and the team started winning and getting the award, it is an ROI.
So you kind of justify, or you look for these awards, or they can be a result, right? For what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
trying to do.
yeah. So it should be something tangible. uh, Very recently, I had a coaching session with a colleague, and so he was actually, I would put in just a single word, maybe he was actually depressed at what he was doing. He was not happy with what he was doing. And so when I ran the strengths finder and I started having the conversation, I used the power and how can you make your customers happy. When I started connecting these tools, and 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 building the conversation with him, he suddenly saw a light in the tunnel. He said, now I see the role that I am in is something. He actually saw a different role where he found more value. He started connecting himself to the new role, and he said, I find great value in this new role. And the management itself, including the MD and the head of sales, were quite taken aback, because they did not realize a man who was stationed in Bangalore, he's more than 50 years old, and it was difficult for him to sort of change his mindset. And he's readily moving from one location to the other, just by understanding how his strengths can make a big difference. And he's now adopted a new role, and he's happy about it. He's very happy about it. And I'm personally glad, and I must say thanks again to Gallup, because this is something what is a game changer for people. It's That's why I said, it makes people flourish their lives. So that was an interesting experience, and I loved it.
Vivian, what about you? You mentioned Switzerland, and
Yeah.
your multinational
Yeah.
company. Have you seen it work differently in the different offices globally? Has it taken a similar feel in each of the offices? Can you expand on that a little bit? As what does that look like, maybe from a global implementation standpoint?
Okay. Well, from a global implementation standpoint, I think we have to really develop this across all the countries. But it's kind of gained a lot of prominence in the Asia Pacific region, including South Africa. So, for example, let me tell you, in South Africa, we have all of the employees who have undergone the Strengths Finder, and all of them have undergone, and it's quite successful there too. And the MD, the managing director, to the regional director there, has quite embraced the tool. In Switzerland, it's still in bits and pieces. It's not kind of come at one place, at everyone going for it. But more or less, people are just experiencing it and seeing it. But I think it has to become more ingrained to that part of the world, in Europe.
Tanvi, as you work out of our Delhi office, and you see a lot of international work around the world doing this too. What have you seen as organizations are trying to roll this out around the globe? It's easy when it's one. I should say it's probably not easy in one country even there, but talk a little bit about some best practices. What have you seen work well as organizations push that out globally?
Yeah, that's a great question. Uh, I think because of strengths being such a fabulous common language, it's a way to help people understand how they can be the best version of themselves. It's not trying to replicate, and I don't want to be more of Vivian, I don't want to be more of Jim, I want to be the best version of myself, of Tanvi, and that's something that I've seen work, whether it's in India, China, Europe, America. It doesn't really matter. It's a global, unique understanding that everybody wants, and people want. You want to be seen, you want to be heard, and what best to have those tools in your arsenal that make you articulate, that if you're hearing things like, oh, I've always been good with numbers, or I've always been good with people, what does it mean? How do I dial it up? How do I dial it down? So to sum up your question, it's that common language that flourishes globally, and it's not just in one region where I, in my experience of 7 years of Gallup, have seen a lot of success and one not. It's been really quite uniform in terms of being stable.
Vivian, you mentioned it's been
Yeah.
working in South Africa, and of course, the South African
Mhm.
culture and the Indian culture maybe aren't the same. Is it translating across from a cultural standpoint? Are you getting, because of the common framework that exists, are you maximizing that common framework even when the cultures may not be exactly the same?
Yeah, I see. I can share this experience when I had this regional Asia Pacific session here in Switzerland. We also had the Swiss colleagues attending it along with the regional HR folks. But then all of them, this does not have any culture bias. I feel the tool doesn't have any culture bias. It's very uniform. So people are actually seeing it, naturally happening. So in this team, we also had a Russian colleague, and she was actually, she experienced it for the first time, and she was actually surprised. She said, everything falls into place. This is how it is, and this is what I am, and this is how I'm actually succeeding. If I really put the right things in the right place, I think I can really go for the best mileage. And all of them coherently, in fact, have asked if I could prepare the talent toolkit for all of them. So I would be preparing for all of them the talent toolkit, and also maybe for their management teams. So when I say Asia Pacific, this doesn't confine only to India or maybe to Southeast Asia. It also includes South Africa. It includes Australia, includes China, of course, China, Russia. You had Kazakhstan. So it's quite a number of countries, and then from there, as a next level, the HR director has also asked us to move on to other countries like Mexico, Canada, that side, and also the European countries such as Western Europe. So I'm looking forward to some more interesting challenges.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Tanvi, I'm out of questions from the chat room. I'll go back to you for the next few.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts from you, Vivian, that you'd like to share with all of us who dialed in, and we'll be keen to listen on when people dial into call to coach. Anything that you'd like to share, your last parting thoughts?
Well, before coming to this session, I was a little bit, I was a little bit nervous. But the moment Jim came on screen, it was it was it was so good. It was so good. I mean, it's so simple. So so easy. So I would only say this. I think Jim, Tanvi, the entire team, Micah Lebrandt, who is also a host for Jim, in most of the call to coach sessions. Of course, Pooja from India, all of them. I mean, this entire team, please keep going. This is something really, it's of immense value to all of us. We may be getting an opportunity to voice out such things only during the, live telecast like this. But otherwise, this is a really big game changer. It really changes lives. It creates a positive change, a positive impression for everyone. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for all that you're doing, Vivian, to spread the movement. We really appreciate it. Thank you for
Tanvi.
sharing all
Thanks
that.
a lot.
Thank you. Jim, anything from you?
Tanvi, you, for your first one, how'd you feel on this? Vivian got a chance to have it. It's the first one for you. How do you feel?
I loved it. It was, and I'm so glad that to have done my first with my first call to coach with somebody as fabulous as Vivian. And
Yeah. Yeah. He made it
there's
kind
so
of
much
easy.
that I've learned. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, now that you're
So
certified, now that you're a certified Called the Coach host, we should be able to double our India output at this point, right?
absolutely,
And be able to
I'd
do this.
love to.
Vivian, I also want to say thank you as well for doing this. We have had a little bit of an extended break from India, and it's good to kind of get back on the horse, as we say, so to speak. It's just great to be back and to do this. And Tom V, thank you for
Thank you,
taking
Jim.
the time to fill in for
Thanks a
Pooja,
lot.
who couldn't do that
Happy to.
as well. It's always great for me. It's always great to hear what's going on around the world as we get the opportunity to do that in either Singapore or Sydney with you guys in India. With the work that's coming out of the United States, and we're going to be in Europe here in 2 weeks doing some interviews and a live Called to Coach from London. So Vivian, you said Europe maybe needs some work. Okay, we're going to Europe. We're excited about the certified coaches that are in Europe as well.
Yep.
And we're that's kind of my goal, right? I think I own most of the world. I need to own Europe a little bit better. So we'll be doing a live Called to Coach from the Shard in London during an event that is there December 4th, and you can register for that as well if you're going to want to come watch us live. I don't know what 4 p.m. UTC is for you guys. I'm sure it's probably middle of the night, but we'd love to have everybody come out and join us for that Call to Coach as well. You guys hang tight. Let me wrap this up with that. Will remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available now in the new Gallup Access. You can just go to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths is a great place to start. Tons of resources that are available for you out there as well. It's a brand new site. If you haven't spent some time on it, you might want to dig in a little bit. Look at all the menus drop down. You may be surprised. Actually, the history of CliftonStrengths is now there, and you can go out there and get that available. Again, that's at gallup.com/CliftonStrengths. If you have any questions, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. You can catch the recorded audio and video of this program as well as all the past ones. They're available on our. They're available actually as a podcast. So any podcast player, just search Gallup Webcast. If you're on YouTube, and who isn't watching still? Well, you're watching this on YouTube right now, quite possibly. Head out to youtube.com and search CliftonStrengths, and you can see our channel that's available there as well. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup Certified Strengths Coach, you can see a complete list of all the courses that are available. Tommy, do you know, are there any courses coming up in India that you're aware of that you might want to promote?
There are 2 next week, one in Delhi and one in Mumbai. That starts from 25th to 29th of November. And we also have another one coming up in Bangalore in December, the week of 16th.
And people could still sign up if it's pretty close. They could still sign up and come if they wanted to.
If they really want to become a coach, we can definitely have a chat. And
if you're maybe you're looking for some future dates, I'm sure those are available as well.
Many, yes.
You can head out to our courses page, courses.gallup.com, and all the information is available there. If you want to follow us on Facebook, if you want to jump on there, we have about 14,000 people in that group now, and you might want to join us there. It's at facebook.com/groups/called-to-coach, all one word. I want to thank you for joining us tonight or this morning, depending upon where you're at or any part of the day. Thanks for joining us today. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.